Alright guys, so today what we're going to do is compare and contrast Kennedy's speech versus Johnson's speech. Now the important thing with this to note is that Kennedy and Johnson have two very different upbringings. So we already kind of talked about this during the warm-up. So tell me a little bit about John F. Kennedy.
He grew up in a rich family.
Yeah, he grew up in a rich family. What else?
He was set up for a good life.
Set up for a good life.
They were already into politics.
Catholic, already into politics. Yes, his dad was already an ambassador, big in the Democratic Party, already set up for a big political career. What else? Anything else? You brought up that he was Catholic. Why was that important?
Because he, one of the first Catholics.
Yeah, he's going to be the first Catholic president. It's a big deal because there was a lot of tension in American history over having a Catholic in politics. Yeah. But what about Johnson? Tell me a little bit about LBJ.
He was poor.
Poor, broke, yeah. Where did he grow up?
Texas.
Texas, yeah. So he is a Southern boy to a T. He is poor and broke. He comes from a poor family, right? Anything else about him?
He was a teacher, right?
Yeah, his first job, he's a teacher. So he kind of like starts off in this lower class kind of setting, whereas Kennedy is upper class all the way. That is going to make a big difference when we look at their speeches and their goals as presidents, right? And how those two can guide society forward. So what we're going to do now, you guys have the full text on Canvas. It's already pulled up, so you can look at the full text of both speeches. But we're going to look at two clips of their speeches so that you guys can kind of get a feel of the tone of their voice when they're giving their speeches. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to start with Kennedy. We'll watch a little bit of Kennedy's speech, then we'll go to Johnson, a little bit of Johnson's speech, and then we'll go from there, okay? All right.
Vice President Johnson, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, President Truman, Reverend clergy, fellow citizens. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still an issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world.
All right, so I'm going to stop it there. What are a couple of things you've noticed about his speech, like some of the key points that he's making? New generation, okay. Okay, start over fresh. Maybe the this idea of let's retackle old issues. Okay, what else? You notice how he says this nation and abroad, and he says globally a lot. So what do you think his main focuses are going to be?
Change the world.
Change the world and the country, right? So he's got both going on at the same time. You know, and you can't have both at the same time. So he's thinking globally, these natural rights, right? He talked about poverty a little bit. So when he talked about poverty, was it only in the U.S.? No, he's talking about global poverty, right? He's talking about international issues. We're going to see Kennedy as a big international focused guy. Okay? We'll see that when we kind of dig into the meat of the text. All right? So now let's take a second. We'll look at Johnson's Great Society speech. So he gives this about 5 months after he becomes president, after Kennedy's assassination.
In 1964.
President Hatcher, Governor Romney, Senators McNamara and Hart, Congressman Meter and Stabler, and other members of the fine Michigan delegation, members of the graduating class, my fellow Americans. It is a great pleasure to be here today. This university has been coeducational since 1870. But I do not believe it was on the basis of your accomplishments that a Detroit high school girl said, and I quote, "In choosing a college, you first have to decide whether you want a coeducational school or an educational school." Well, we can find both here at Michigan, although perhaps at different hours. I came out here today very anxious to meet the Michigan student whose father told a friend of mine that his son's education had been a real value. It stopped his mother from bragging about him. I have come today from the turmoil of your capital to the tranquility of your campus to speak about the future of your country. The purpose of protecting the life of our nation and preserving the liberty of our citizens is to pursue the happiness of our people. Our success in that pursuit is the test of our success as a nation. For a century, we labored to settle and to subdue a continent. For half a century, we called upon unbounded invention and untiring endurance to create an order of plenty for all of our people. The challenge of the next half century is whether we have the wisdom to use that wealth to enrich and elevate our national life and to advance the quality of our American civilization.
All right, so what are some things you noticed about that one that were a little bit different?
He says that quality.
Yes.
He's focusing on the country.
Yeah, definitely quality of life, country. Do what?
Also a lot less formal.
A lot less formal, yeah. And you see that with his background, right? It kind of makes sense that he may be a less formal president, a less formal guy, more down to earth. But you also get, just like y'all were saying, quality of life in our nation, for our people, in our country, right? He's very more America-centered instead of internationally centered, okay? That's a big difference between Johnson, who's more grassroots, and Kennedy, who's more like shooting for the stars. So everybody's got the speeches pulled up in Canvas. So now what we're gonna do, I want you guys, and you can do this in pairs, to go through and skim through the speeches and look for key points where you can see what Kennedy's talking about, his main idea, his goals, and his tone. And then same thing with Johnson, main ideas, goals, and tone. As you go through that, I want you to consider which one of those main points do you think has had a greater impact over life in the U.S. over time? Okay? So for example, if you look at Johnson saying focusing on our country, all right? When he says that and the things he says he wants to do, his goals, go through that and look and see if those things are things you see today, all right? If those things have lasted, if those goals were succeeded, okay? Same thing with Kennedy, international issues, all that good stuff, whether or not those goals have made it, whether or not he was successful in those goals, okay? So, as you guys go through the speeches, I'll walk around a little bit and help you guys out with it. So, you guys are good? Okay, good.
Was she gonna be at Marriott?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Got it here, good. Alright. Can you guys kind of tell the difference so far as you're going through the speech about the difference between an American-centric versus international focus? Yeah, any particular language you see?